Okay, awesome. Hi, everyone. I am Team 15, aka Mr. C, and today we are going to talk about three things, three things that are related in English, three things that revolve around verbs. So we are going to talk about gerunds, infinitives, and participles. So we're going to talk about those. This is our lesson topic. Let me just change that a bit. Oh, well, thank you for the apple. Okay. Um, so to start, here, let me look at my outline. Okay. Um, oh, was someone going to say something? Okay, well, let's start with infinitives first. Um, and you'll see why I'm bringing up teaching this later because this is a topic that a lot of people have problems with, particularly those who speak English. Particularly those who speak Spanish and Portuguese, and you'll see why later. But for starters, what is an infinitive? Can anyone tell me what is that? What that is? I mean, a noun. Yeah, I think you mean to say a verb that's not conjugated, but yeah, basically, kind of like that's kind of it. It's like, well, I mean, it can have. It's often with the verb with the word to. Sometimes it's without the word to, but yeah, basically, it's the to form, yeah, basically. Although sometimes, well, let me focus on one thing at a time. It's basically a verb of this form. So to eat, to swim, to sing, to work. These are all examples of infinitives. So basically, a verb in its bare form with unconjugated form with the word to. So, for example, you have the sentence. Um, we have the sentence.
Wait, aren't there two types of infinitives? The to infinitive and the bare infinitive?
Yeah, I'll cover
Or
that in a
are
moment.
both
But
the
yeah, you're
same?
right. Yeah, I'll cover that bare infinitives in a moment.
Okay.
Okay, so in this case, what would be the infinitive in this sentence? I like to run. Yeah, to run, exactly. And as someone brought up earlier, there are two types of infinitives. You have the infinitive with the to. Here, let me type that actually. You have you have regular infinitives or whatever they're called. I honestly don't even know the proper form. And bare infinitives. I'll just call the first one regular infinitives. So we have two types of infinitives, the regular infinitives and the bare infinitives. So a regular infinitive has the word to included, but the bare infinitive does not. So it's just the verb itself, unconjugated. So for example, um, here's a slightly tricky one. What would be the bare infinitive in this sentence? Yeah, see, exactly. We don't put to there. We never say let me to see that. We would just say let me see that. Let's take care of that. Okay. And But with the verb help, you can actually use either a regular infinitive or a bare infinitive. But with let, you have only a bare infinitive. So, for example, you could say something like this.
Is it because let is a transitive verb?
Honestly, I don't know. I don't really know the reason behind that. You could be right, but I honestly don't know. I just know that we would never use a regular infinitive with let.
All right, so it's just you need to
Yeah,
memorize that, right?
yeah, it's
Okay.
just something you have to memorize. But either of these sentences is fine. Help me to find my hat or help me find my hat. But I think using the to form with help is a little less common than just using the bare infinitive. But technically, either are fine. Either is fine. Um, you can use either. So for some verbs, you can use either. But for verbs like let or make, no, you cannot. It's just the bare infinitive. Okay, so that's infinitives. So yeah, exactly. Make me do that or something like that. Like make him work on his homework. That's another example. So here, let me type that up. What would be the infinitive in this sentence? Yeah, exactly. It's just work. It's a bare infinitive. It's just work. Not make, work, but make is just a regular verb here. It's in the imperative mood. So it's a command. Okay. So that's infinitives. Now, what's a participle? Can someone tell me that?
Wait, teacher, before you move to participles, can I ask a question?
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, in your sentence, you wrote make him work on his assignment, but if I change make to force, so I
I'm sorry, what? I think your mic just cut off there. Huh. But I think I got what you were asking. You're asking like with the verb force, can you use the to form? Yeah, in that case, yeah, you with the verb force, yeah. You could say force him to work on his assignment, not force him work on this assignment. You'd have to use the to form with force, the verb force. Okay. Oh, that's a really good answer. Yeah. What Mytho just typed, a participle is a verb form that can be used as an adjective or to create a verb tense or to create the passive voice. So yeah, that's pretty much it. And yeah, that's another good example that this person just posted. Okay. So yeah, it's a verb that can be used as part of a verb phrase, like with verb tenses, or it can be used as an adjective, or it can be used in passive constructions. So, for example, here let's cover each of these. Let's talk about creating verb tenses. So, in this case, so what is the present here? Actually, I forgot to mention we have two types of participles. We have present participles and past participles. So, let me type that for you guys. Oops. So we have two types of participles. We have the present participle and the past participle. So Can someone give me an example of what a present participle would be and what a past participle would be? Well, yeah, basically, that's it. ing and ed. For regular forms, anyway. Or you could put in full words. I don't really care how you do it. Yeah, so the present form, the present participle verbs, present participles end in ing. Past participles end in, typically, not always, because remember we have irregular verbs in English. Oops. Present participles always end in ing. Past participles usually end in ed. So that's the difference. So I misspelled one of these. Okay. So to provide a difference between the two. Okay, so first let's talk about the first form, like using participles in verb tenses. So we have this sentence. Which participle is this? Let me type it up. So which participle is that? Yeah, exactly. I should point out which participle, past or present. Yeah, exactly. It's present. Mm, okay. So which participle is this one? Knowing is the present participle. Yeah, exactly. It's the past participle. Okay. So you guys get the idea. So present participle is like ing, past participle usually ed, but sometimes it can be irregular. Okay. Yeah, that would be present perfect in this case. Okay, so you guys see how participles can be used for verb tenses, but let's see how they're used in as adjectives. So for example,
Sorry, teacher, my internet went off.
oh, it's okay. But to answer your question earlier, since you probably didn't hear it, with force you can't use a bare infinitive if that's what you were asking. So you'd
Yeah,
have to,
that's exactly.
yeah. So you'd use the to form definitely.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Let's see. Okay, so in this case, we have a participle. Yeah, let me type this out first. Here we have a participle being used as an adjective, but which participle is it? Is it past or present? Sorry, I should have said past or present. Yeah, exactly. It's past. Okay. Now let me show you another example. And this one's slightly tricky, so pay really close attention to how the verb is used. So okay, so what about that one? Yeah, exactly. It's present. And notice how it's not actually a verb here. It's actually an adjective. If it were a verb, then we would need to use a direct object. So you could say, this topic is confusing me. But in that case, confusing is not a participle. So let me actually type the difference here so that you guys can understand it. Okay, so here's the difference between the two sentences. This topic is confusing me. Here, confusing is just a verb. It's combined with is for the present continuous. So it's not an adjective here. But in the second sentence, it is. This topic is confusing. I mean, yeah, they're both participles, but one is being used as a verb, the other is being used as an adjective. So in the second one, confusing is an adjective, not a verb. So if that makes sense. So be careful with how you use ing verbs. Okay.
And what about boring and bored? Both are adjectives, right? So how do you identify them,
Oh,
distinguish them?
oh well, it's the actually that is a good question. Um, okay, so yeah, boring is a present participle, bored is past. Now, if you're wondering what the difference is between the two, it depends on it depends on the context. So, for example, when you say this, here, let me type this sentence and this sentence. What is the difference between those two sentences? Can someone tell me? And they're both adjectives in this case. So, can someone tell me the difference between these two?
The first one means that you are, as a person, boring people. Like you're boring and not bored. How do I explain it?
I get what you're saying. I think you're saying that the first sentence means that, you're dull, boring, not interesting. In the second sentence, it means that you're just not interested in someone or
Yes.
something. So, yeah, that's the difference. Yeah, you got it. So, yeah. So, that's the difference between the two. So, be really careful with how you use ing and ed to verbs to describe um, someone or something. And so of course other people have provided good answers too. Okay. That's a funny example. I'm bored and boring because I am bored with boringness. Okay. Okay. And to let me bring back these examples, but let me show how see in languages like Spanish and Portuguese, you can't use ing verbs as adjectives, but you can use ed verbs, past participles, as adjectives. So to provide an example, in Spanish, see here, we have a past participle here, roto, which is the past participle form of the verb romper, which means to break. So in Spanish, there's a similar context. And you can also you can do it like this too. Yeah, that translates to is. Yeah, exactly. So here you have a similar example, but this time, since Spanish has noun gender, adjectives also have to agree with the noun in gender or pronoun. So in this case, we have this, which we have the participle confundida, which is the past participle form of confundir, but it's feminine this time instead of masculine. So in Spanish, there's a similar. It's the same thing basically. However, there is one big difference with regard to ing verbs in both English and Spanish. Yeah, and you'd say it beats. And I'm sorry for my not my if my pronunciation is perfect, but for this one, for the first sentence, it would be mi teléfono está roto, and in the second sentence, it would be ella está confundida. That's how you would pronounce those two. But here, let me show you something that a very important distinction in both English and Spanish. So here we have the dancing man came to see us. You can't use the ing verb like that as an adjective like that in Spanish. You can't do that. It would not sound good. It's not standard anyway. So you'd have to rephrase it. So you just have to say you just have to say the dancer or something like that. You can't really use ing verbs in Spanish like that as adjectives. So this is what presents one particular difficulty for Spanish speakers in who are learning English, because in English ing verbs are everywhere, but in Spanish they exist, but not as much. So yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's basically what it is. Yeah. So in the example I brought up here, bailando, which would be the ing verb for dancing in Spanish, but you can't use it as an adjective. Okay. So that's one important difference. And here's another important difference. But actually no. Let me talk about something else that's important. So now that you know about infinitives and participles, let's talk about gerunds. It's pronounced gerund. So what is a gerund? Can someone tell me? Yeah, perfect. It's a verb that acts as a noun, an ing verb. Only ing verbs can act as noun, not ed verbs. Ing verbs can act as nouns. So yeah, that's basically it. So, for example, what would be the gerund in this sentence? Yeah, exactly, running. Because it's functioning as a noun. What does he hate? He hates running. Okay, so to provide another example, what about this one? What would be the gerund in that sentence? Yeah, exactly, driving. Someone put no, but yeah, driving. That's the gerund. Okay, so basically a gerund. Let me type this for the record. is an ing verb that functions as a noun. And let me boldface that. And here's another area where English and Spanish differ with regard to ing verbs. So let me post something here. I made a little picture here so that you guys could see the difference. If I can just get this to hurry up. Okay, let's see. Okay, so, and of course this applies to Portuguese too, but I don't know much Portuguese, so if you speak Portuguese, and just it's basically the same concept as in Spanish. Okay, so here's a little picture I made. So you can see how the verbal nouns are mapped in both languages. In English, verbal nouns can be either gerunds or infinitives, but in Spanish, they're infinitives only. Because as I just said, this is where the two languages differ. So what do I mean by this? Okay, well, let's look at some examples. We have two equally grammatical examples in English. I like to swim, and I like swimming. Both are fine. Now in Spanish, let's look at the difference here. Spanish speakers, which of these is wrong? Yeah, exactly. You wouldn't say the second one. So let me just cross that out because that is horrible to look at. Yeah, the second one is not correct. You wouldn't say me gusta nadando. You would say me gusta nadar. Because you can't use ing verbs as nouns in Spanish. You can't really do that. But in English, you can. And again, this is what causes the confusion, because going back to this little thing I made, in English, gerunds and infinitives can be nouns, but in Spanish, only infinitives can be nouns. And this applies to Portuguese too. Okay, so this is what causes a lot of problems for people. So how do you overcome that mapping issue? Well, there's one really easy trick. And I'm not going to throw a bunch of technical terms at you, but instead, this is something it's just really easy to do. It's really easy to implement. So here, let me type it. So here's the trick to tell the difference between gerunds and regular verbs. So, or participles. So here's the trick. Here, let me type it. English teachers hate them. Learn one simple trick now. Like those ads. Exactly. Okay, let's see. So let me type that here. So here's the trick. If the ing verb can be replaced with the pronoun it, then you have a gerund. And this makes sense, right? Because pronouns can replace nouns in English, right? Because pronouns take the place of nouns, and gerunds are verbs that function as nouns. So if you can replace the ing verb with an it, then it's not a verb, and it's actually a noun. So that's how you can tell the difference. So to provide an example, actually, let me see. Okay. So remember the trick I taught you. So again, if you have an ing verb and you can replace it with it, then you have a gerund. So do you have a gerund here? Yes, exactly. You have a gerund here. Yeah, it's dancing. But yeah, exactly. You have a gerund here. Okay, so let's go back to the example I brought up here. Yeah, exactly. You can replace it with it, and it would make sense. So what about this one? Do you have a gerund here? Yes, exactly, because you can replace swimming with it. I like swimming. I like it. Okay. But what about this one? I'm trying to find my lost dog. Do you have a gerund here? Is trying a gerund? No, exactly. Because if you replace it trying with it, the sentence won't make sense. You would basically be saying, I'm it to find my lost dog. So no, it doesn't make any sense. So that's how you can tell the difference. Yeah, exactly. In this case, it's a verb, a present participle, yes. So see, you guys get it. So that's how you can tell the difference between, like, gerunds and participles or verbs. So to provide another example, do you have a gerund in this sentence? She's coming with us. Yes or no? No, exactly. So you wouldn't say she's it with us. So you can't replace coming with it. So knowing this, see how easy it is to tell the difference? You can tell the difference between a gerund and a participle, a present participle, by just saying, okay, can I replace the verb with it? If I can, I have a gerund. If I can't, I have something else. So see, you guys are getting it. She is it with, yeah, that wouldn't make any sense, exactly. Okay, so that's really it. Like, that's just how you can tell the difference. So hopefully um that should make telling the difference between gerunds and present participles easier. So you don't really need to know any fancy grammatical terms. You just need to replace the verb with it. If it makes sense, then you have a gerund. If not, then you have a present participle. And I should also point out one thing. So with gerunds, infinitives, and participles, coming in that sense is just a present participle. But anyway, with gerunds, infinitives, and participles, you can have phrases too. They can be phrases. So for example, you have a gerund phrase here. But what is it? What's the gerund phrase here? So it's more than one word. Yeah, exactly. Playing sports. That's a gerund phrase. And it's a phrase because there's more than one word. So a gerund can be like part of a larger unit, in this case a phrase. So you could also say, yeah, it could be more than 2 words. Let me show you an example right now. I can't type today. Okay. So what's the gerund phrase here? So it's not just the ing verb. It's, yeah, exactly, everything that comes after it in this case. Yeah, playing video games. That's the gerund phrase. I can't, yeah, I don't know why. I just suck at typing for some reason. But yeah, yeah, see, you guys are getting it. You could also have participle phrases too. So what's the participle phrase here? Or participial, I should say. So what's the participial phrase here? Yeah, exactly. Living with my friend. Because that whole thing, that whole unit of words is functioning as an adjective because it's describing the man. Which man? The man living with my friend. Yeah, exactly. That's pretty much it. If you can replace the ing verb with it, then you have a gerund. If not, then you have something else. It could be a verb, or it could be a present participle functioning as a verb or functioning as an adjective. Okay. Ah, that's funny. And you can also have, here, I'm trying to think of an example for an infinitive. Okay, so yeah, let me do this. He plans to work hard. What is the infinitive phrase here? Yeah, to work hard, exactly. To work hard. 3 words, not just 2 or even 1. But yeah, it's to work hard in this case. So yeah, see? You could have phrases with gerunds, infinitives, or participles. So see? Well, present participles anyway. Okay, so yeah, that's really the differences between all of them.
So, teacher, can I ask a question?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, so I was taught in school that generally infinitives come after the preposition to, but there are certain types of verbs in which this rule doesn't apply. These verbs, such as look forward to, object to, commit to, admit to, devote to, and so on and so forth, like hundreds of them. So, is there a rule or a trick which could help us identify when to use an infinitive and when a gerund, especially after these verbs are, I don't know if they're uncommon or what's so special about these verbs, such as I said, look forward to, object to, admit to.
Oh, that's okay. That's actually a good question. Okay, so I believe what he's saying is that He's trying to decide when you can use ing verbs and when you just use infinitives. Okay, so let's bring back my example earlier where you could use either one. So here you can use either a gerund or an infinitive. But let me show you an example where you have to use just one and not the other. No, they're both correct. Okay, let's see. That one's pretty obvious. Let me show you. Okay. Actually, no. Wait, no. Okay, so which one is wrong there? Yeah, the second. In that case, you'd have to use the infinitive. You would never use the ing form. But here to answer what this person asked earlier. Now here's a tricky one here. Which one do you guys think is the correct one? Now this one's a bit tricky, so which one do you guys think is the correct one? Yeah, exactly. It's the first one, not the second. And you're probably thinking, wait, how can that be? Okay, well, here, when you say you're looking forward to something. So in this case, we have a noun that we need to use. So using the bare infinitive here wouldn't quite work. So we have to use a gerund. I look forward to working with you. So you would never say the second one. Now, what about this one? It's a similar example. Which one is correct? Yeah, the second, exactly. You would never say the first one. It's the second one. What did you admit to? You admitted to something. You admitted to an act, a noun. So in this case, we have to use the ing form here. He admitted to stealing the money. Not he admitted to steal the money. He admitted to stealing the money. So don't let that throw you off. Just because it's there doesn't necessarily mean you have to use the bare infinitive. It depends. So here, let me type that here. Okay. So here's a tip. Do not let the word to throw you off. Instead, focus on the overall context of the sentence. So if you just say, oh, well, there's a to here, I'll just put a ver infinitive after it. No, don't. No, it depends. So be careful with how you do that.
Intuitive.
Intuitive.
Okay. So
Intuitive.
Intuitive. Intuitive.
oh, and I should also point out one thing. Infinitives can also be used like this, but it's not common to do so. Now, let me change this up. You could technically use infinitives like this. To run is my favorite thing to do in the morning, but it's not common. It's grammatically correct, but it's not common. It's not common. Yeah, exactly. You're emphasizing to run. To run is my favorite thing to do in the morning. But again, people would normally say running. To run is not really something you'd hear very much. But if you want to emphasize the infinitive itself, then yeah, you could say that. Yeah, it's in a sense poetic. You could think of it like that. It's just one of those. It's just one of those funny things of any language where it's not normally where you don't normally say things that way, but you can. It's for some sort of effect. Okay. Okay, and I'm trying to going back to what I think that's really it for this lesson. This was a really short one. I don't really have anything else to talk about. Um, but does anyone have any questions so far regarding gerunds, infinitives, and uh, participles? And yeah, like if it's still not clear as to whether you should use an infinitive or a gerund, I think that's just something you have to pick up over time. I can't really think of any hard, fast rules for it. Um, but like it's just something you have to pick up over time. You have to get used to the language. Then you'll tell, oh, okay, I don't use the ing verb here, and I use it here. So it's just something you have to get used to. Because I don't think I completely answered that question that someone asked last time. So again, it's just something. It's just something you have to get a feel for. Am I a teacher in real life? No. I no, I'm not a teacher in real life. I've been a tutor, but I'm not a teacher. Okay. Can you summarize, please? Okay, so we have three different types. Yeah, to do is technically an infinitive there, but the only difference between to do and to run in that sense is that to do is not the subject. To run is. Tarnishing his reputation. That's a good question, actually. That's actually a good question. Is that phrase a participle phrase? Um. Oh, you're welcome. You're welcome, Ash Talk, or however you pronounce your name. Okay. Is it a participle phrase? No, it's grammatical, yeah, but it's. I don't really know what to call that phrase though. Like tarnishing his reputation. Let me go back to this one. In that case, it's not it's not functioning as an adjective there. Honestly, I don't even know that one. On it. Okay, here, hold up. And I think you might be right. It is a participle phrase, but I don't think it's functioning as an adjective. So, participial phrase, or however you call it, whatever you call it. But I guess yeah, participial phrases are not limited to just adjectives though. So um I guess actually no, I think in that case it might be functioning as an adjective. Honestly, I don't know, but regardless of whether or not it's an adjective, it is definitely a participle phrase. So to answer your question, yes. It's not a relative clause though. A relative clause has to include a relative pronoun like who or that or which. Participles can be either verbs or adjectives. So in this case, I'm boring is a it's a participle functioning as an adjective. But if you said something like I'm boring you, in that case it's a verb. Boring is a verb. Yeah, the who, well, actually no. No, the who isn't omitted in that sentence. Did I study English in universities? No. I mean, I did have a few English classes, but no. Um, if you're wondering how I came to know all the about so much about all this grammar, it's something that I've been doing since fifth grade. Actually, my parents would, or like sometime around that point, my parents would often get me grammar books that I would just do. So, and plus, I've always been interested in grammar, not just in English, but in any language. So, that's how I know about a lot of this. But I'm not a teacher or anything like that. Nor did I study like grammar. I studied a bit of grammar in university, but at that point, I already knew most of what I know about grammar. Okay, so to continue, it is a participial phrase though. So Schrodinger, you are right on that front. As to whether or not it's a verb or an adjective, I honestly don't know. I guess it's an adjective in that sense, but yeah, I'm not claiming to be an expert, but it is definitely a participial phrase. Okay, so to recap, we have three different types of verbs. We have gerunds, infinitives, and participles. So to summarize, infinitives often have the word to in front of the verb, and not always though. Oops. Okay. So participles can be part of a verb phrase, such as the present continuous or the present perfect, like is breaking, has broken, or it can be an adjective. Okay, so I don't have any exercises set up. Let's see. Let's see. Just typing up the recap. Okay, so here's the recap. So we have three different types of verbs. We have gerunds, infinitives, and participles. Infinitives often have the word to in front of the verb, but not always. So, for example, to work, to run, to swim, to walk, to dance, to fix, to eat, to drink. Participles, ing or ed, can be, usually ed, can be part of a verb phrase or can be adjectives. So you could say, I'm working on my report. That working is, it's a verb in that case. But she's a working woman. In that case, working is an adjective. And gerunds are ing verbs. They can only be ing verbs. They can't be ed verbs. They are only ing verbs. These can function as nouns. So, for example, fixing electronics is my job. That fixing electronics is a gerund phrase. The word fixing is to gerund, but fixing electronics is to gerund phrase. Okay. So yeah, that's that. Or you could make it. It doesn't have to be a subject. Gerunds can be subjects, objects, really, or objects of prepositions. So so let's use Schrodinger's example here. This is a good example. Even with that innership, he won't come remotely close to being accepted at Google. So the gerund phrase is what in that sentence? What would the gerund phrase be in that sentence? Yeah, being accepted at Google, exactly. He won't come remotely close to something. What's that something? Being accepted at Google. That's it. That's exactly it. So see, you guys seem to have gotten the concept overall. So this really isn't that hard. And remember that if you can't tell the difference between a gerund and a participle, replace the verb, the ing verb, with it, the pronoun it. And if it makes sense, then you have a gerund. If not, then you have a participle. So remember that. So that's the recap so far. So that's it for the main part of the lesson. But to see if you guys actually can actually, implement what you've learned, someone give me an example of a gerund. It could be a gerund phrase or just the gerund itself. So can someone give me an example of a gerund? I was saying there, not quite. I'm reading now, not quite. I'm like playing. I'm tired of learning. Yeah, both of those work. Yeah, both of those are gerunds. Playing and learning. Swimming is hard. Yeah, exactly. You got it. Swimming is hard. I'm tired of dying. Yeah, that's an example. That's a good example. A morbid example, but a good example nonetheless. Singing isn't my, I think you mean to say my cup of tea, not my a cup of tea. But yeah, otherwise that's correct. Yeah, remember the tip I gave you. Oops, I already typed that. Okay. I like hacking. Another good example. Slightly disturbing, but another good example. No, I'm just playing. Okay, I love studying math. Yeah. Okay. So, okay. So, the teacher appreciated my trying the math problem. Yeah, that's a good example. And I like how you used my here instead of me, because a lot of people would just say me. The teacher appreciated me trying the math problem, which isn't wrong, but the more precise form would be my. But you don't really see that usage very much nowadays. So that was a good example. You don't lose trying. Yeah, another good example.
Hey teacher, I can't hear anyone without you.
What? Oh, that's because everyone's not speaking right now.
Who are you speaking right now?
It's just me. I'm the one speaking.
Oh, okay, I'm so sorry.
It's okay. Okay, so now can someone give me an example of an oops, that should be an infinitive.
I can give some example about that.
Yeah, you just type it in the chat.
Okay, alright.
To play with my friends online is my favorite part of the day. Correct, but not common. Play with my friends online is my favorite part of the day. Correct and common. Yeah, exactly. See, you're getting it. See, this isn't hard. Okay, but now to my next question. I like to work. Yeah, that works. I like to play. Another one to remember, guys. Technically, that actually works to remember. Tara has the ability to succeed. Yeah, exactly. Okay. So, now, someone. So, this is the last question I'll ask. Can someone give me an example of a participle? And it can be, here, it can be a verb or an adjective. Because participles can be both. So, it should be I have run. But yeah, I got what you meant. It should be I had run. But actually, I'm not quite sure what you're saying there. She is driving me crazy. Yeah, exactly. That in that case, driving is functioning as a noun. I have been taking an English class with people around the world. Yeah, taking in that case is a participle functioning as a verb. I participated. Okay, yeah. I have written a book. That works too. There should be two T's though in written. But yeah, that works. Now, can someone provide any examples as you know, um, participles function as adjectives. Can someone provide some examples where you have adjectives instead of verbs? I've been lazy. Yeah, that works too. Been in this case is the past participle of the verb to be. He's hardworking. Uh, um, I think that in that I'm not sure that works here. He's hardworking. Yeah, that would just be more of a that's just really just an adjective rather than a verb. Like I was looking for examples. I want examples with that could where you have participles that are normally verbs but can function as adjectives. I'm bored to read books. Um, I mean that could work, but that has a bit of that has a slightly weird phrasing. I am with crowded people. That can work. Yeah. Yeah, in this case crowded is working as an it's an adjective. To answer what someone asked earlier, like remember a participle is a verb that can function as an adjective. So it can be an ing verb or an ed verb. So you could say um he was exhausted. In that case, exhausted is a participle that's functioning as an adjective. Excuse me. Many people find spiders frightening. Yeah, that works. Yeah, that's a good example. In this case, frightening is an adjective. So again, can you think of any examples where you use an ing verb or an ed verb as an adjective? They are confused. Yeah, exactly. See, you're getting it. That's another good example. So in this case, we have a past participle functioning as as an adjective. So yeah, good. You provide an example with the present participle and with the past participle. Okay. All right. Well, she's so done. Yeah, exactly. That's another one. Done in this case works. Done works because it's modifying she, so it's an adjective. She's so done. So see, you guys understand it. I feel tired. Yes, another good one. Tired in this case is a past participle functioning as an adjective. I feel tired. Who's tired? Me. I feel tired. Sometimes it is confusing to learn new concept, but practice can make perfect. Well, I mean, in that case, you technically did it. You did it there. Like confusing in this case is a present participle functioning as an adjective. So that example technically works. But yeah, you're right. Practice can make perfect. Can make perfect. I think this is the most interesting thing I've seen. Yeah, again, interesting here is a participle. See, you guys are getting it. It really should be I've swum. Although you probably come across natives that say things like I've swam or I've ran. It has to be it's I've swum and I've run. I was waiting for him. In that case, waiting is a verb, but it's a participle nonetheless. For a given number. Yeah, for a given number. In this case, given is is an adjective that's functioning. A participle that's functioning as an adjective. Okay. Well, that's enough for today's lesson. So, before I stop, does anyone have any questions? Oh, well, thank you. And to someone else here. Yeah, Susie. Yeah, no problem. You're welcome. Can any verb be used as an adjective? Good question. I'm going to say no. It depends. It really depends. I think I talked about this a bit earlier, but I think I barely touched it. So, no. Oh, yeah, you're welcome. You're welcome. Glace side. I'm sorry if I mispronounced that. Can any verb be used as an adjective? No. So, um, so you can say something like this, right? The. So remember I said earlier, the dancing man, right? In this case, dancing is a participle that describes man. But you can't say this. You cannot say this. You can't say the danced man. That would not make any sense. So whether or not you use ing or ed, it depends on the situation. And again, there's no hard, fast rule for it. It's just something you have to pick up. But yeah, you just be careful with how you use these verbs. Not every verb can function as an adjective. But that's actually a really good question. He danced with the dancing girl. Yeah, see? See, someone here gets it. Yeah, it's just a matter of practice. You'll get a feel for these. You'll get a feel for these, and then you'll be like, that doesn't work. Okay. But if that's it, if no one has any other questions, then yeah, that's it for the lesson. And thank you all so much for coming. And I'm going to stop recording.